Imagine a time when England was not yet born. Amidst the ruins of Roman Britain, the age of the Anglo-Saxons began. Germanic tribes, the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, crossed the North Sea seeking new lands. Their arrival marked the beginning of a new era, a time of turmoil and transformation. The story of Anglo-Saxon England is a saga of ambition, rivalry and resilience. From King Arthur to Alfred the Great, early monarchs left an indelible mark. Their reigns were marked by constant struggle and the foundations of a new order. This is the story of how disparate kingdoms coalesced into a nation. As Rome's grip on Britannia loosened, the Anglo-Saxons arrived. Warriors and families, driven by hope, settled and adapted to the land. The Anglo-Saxons and Jutes established villages and farming communities. The seeds of a new order were sown by these resilient settlers. Anglo-Saxon settlements coalesced into kingdoms. Wessex, Northumbria and Mercia rose to prominence. These kingdoms were dynamic, their borders shifting with war and ambition. A new sense of identity emerged, uniting the Anglo-Saxons. Athelstan, Offa and Alfred were architects of a unified England. Athelstan unified the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms and secured England's borders. Offa's dyke symbolized his power and defined Mercia's boundaries. Alfred the Great's reforms transformed Anglo-Saxon England. Alfred the Great was a visionary leader. He established schools and translated texts, promoting education. Alfred reformed the army and built fortified towns for defense. He united the Anglo-Saxons against the Vikings, securing lasting peace. Alfred's reign marked a turning point in Anglo-Saxon history. His emphasis on education fostered a shared identity. Legal and military reforms strengthened England's defences and economy. Alfred's legacy guided future English kings. Vikings initially brought terror, but became integral to English society. Viking raids evolved into settlement and integration. Old Norse blended with Old English, influencing language and place names. The Danelaw region reflects the lasting Viking presence. Athelstan's reign marked a pivotal moment in Anglo-Saxon England. He campaigned and forged alliances to unify the kingdom. The Battle of Brunanburh secured his hold on the throne. Athelstan's legal reforms promoted justice and stability. Offa of Mercia sought to define his kingdom's boundaries. Offa's dyke symbolized Mercian authority and strength. He was a shrewd diplomat and strategist, fostering economic growth. Offa's reign marked a golden age for Mercia. As the Viking storm raged across Anglo-Saxon England, threatening to extinguish the hard-won gains of civilization and unity, a young king rose to prominence in the Kingdom of Wessex.
Alfred, later to be known as the Great, was a ruler who embodied both the martial prowess of a warrior king and the intellectual curiosity of a scholar, a rare combination that would prove crucial in saving his kingdom and shaping the destiny of England.
When Alfred ascended to the throne of Wessex in 871 AD, the kingdom was on the brink of collapse. Viking raids had devastated the land, their longships a constant menace along the coasts, their warriors a formidable force on the battlefield. Many of Alfred's contemporaries had succumbed to despair, seeking accommodation with the invaders, or fleeing their kingdoms in search of safety.
But Alfred refused to yield. He recognized that to defeat the Vikings, he needed more than just military strength. He understood that knowledge, education, and the preservation of his people's culture were just as important as swords and shields.
Driven by this belief, Alfred embarked on a program of reform and renewal that would transform Anglo-Saxon England. Alfred established schools, encouraging the translation of important religious and literary texts from Latin into Old English, making knowledge accessible to a wider segment of society. He gathered around him scholars and advisors, fostering a spirit of learning and intellectual curiosity at his court.
Alfred himself was a scholar, translating works of philosophy and history, his thirst for knowledge a beacon of hope in a time of darkness.
The reigns of Athelstan, Offa of Mercia, and Alfred the Great represent a pivotal era in Anglo-Saxon England. These kings were architects of a nation, their legacies woven into English society. Athelstan's vision of a unified England laid the groundwork for the nation we know today. Offa of Mercia's legacy is one of strength and ambition. Alfred the Great's impact lies in his military victories and commitment to education. Their legacies continue to inspire, a testament to the enduring impact of leadership. The arrival of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England marked a profound turning point, not just in the spiritual lives of the people, but also in their society. The conversion of the Anglo-Saxon kings had far-reaching consequences, shaping the relationship between church and state. The story begins in the late 6th century with St. Augustine sent by Pope Gregory I to bring Christianity to the Anglo-Saxons. Ethelbert's conversion, influenced by his Christian wife Bertha, was crucial. His embrace of Christianity encouraged other rulers to follow suit. The conversion of kings was often followed by mass baptisms of their people. The spread of Christianity was not always smooth, facing resistance from pagan beliefs. Yet over time, Christianity took root, resonating with a people who had known hardship. As Christianity became more deeply embedded in Anglo-Saxon society, a close and often complex relationship developed between the church and the monarchy. This alliance, forged in mutual dependence and a shared vision of a Christian England, would shape the political and religious landscape for centuries to come.
Kings, eager to legitimize their rule and secure divine favor, often became generous patrons of the church, endowing monasteries, building cathedrals, and supporting missionary work.
In return, the church offered its spiritual authority, lending an air of sanctity to the monarchy and providing a moral framework for governance. This symbiotic relationship is evident in the role played by bishops and abbots as advisors to kings.
These learned men, well versed in scripture and law, often served as diplomats, administrators, and even military strategists. Their influence extended from the royal court to the local parish, shaping the moral and intellectual climate of the kingdom.
The church also played a crucial role in the development of literacy and education in Anglo-Saxon England. Monasteries, established as centres of learning and spiritual retreat, became repositories of knowledge, preserving ancient texts and fostering a love of learning that would eventually spread beyond the confines of the cloister. The influence of Christianity extended far beyond the walls of churches and monasteries, permeating the very fabric of Anglo-Saxon society, shaping its laws, customs and worldview. Christian principles of justice, mercy and compassion gradually infused the legal codes, while religious observances and moral teachings became integral to daily life.
Anglo-Saxon law codes, once primarily concerned with maintaining order and resolving disputes through fines and retribution, began to reflect Christian ideals of forgiveness, restitution, and the protection of the vulnerable.
The concept of sanctuary, the right of those accused of crimes to seek refuge in churches, became an established practice, demonstrating the growing influence of the church in matters of justice.
Christian festivals and observances became interwoven with the rhythms of daily life. The agricultural calendar, once dictated by pagan rituals, was now punctuated by Christian holy days, each with its own traditions and significance.
Sunday, once just another day, became a day of rest and worship, a testament to the pervasive influence of the church. The Christian emphasis on charity and compassion also had a profound impact on Anglo-Saxon society.
Almsgiving became a common practice, and hospitals and shelters were established to care for the sick, the poor, and the elderly. The church, with its message of love and redemption, offered hope and solace in a world often marked by hardship and uncertainty.
Just as the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were beginning to flourish, a new threat emerged from across the North Sea, a force as relentless as the waves themselves, the Vikings. These fierce warriors, hailing from Scandinavia, descended upon the coasts of England in their longships, bringing with them a wave of terror and destruction that would forever alter the course of Anglo-Saxon history.
The first Viking raids, often small-scale and opportunistic, targeted wealthy monasteries and coastal settlements, places where treasure could be easily plundered and defenses were weak.
The Anglo-Saxons, accustomed to internal conflicts but unprepared for this new enemy, were caught off guard by the Vikings' ferocity, their lightning raids leaving a trail of destruction and fear in their wake. Word of these attacks spread like wildfire, carrying tales of the Vikings' brutality, their disregard for sacred places, and their seemingly superhuman strength.
Monasteries, once havens of peace and learning, were transformed into fortresses, their walls hastily reinforced, their treasures hidden. Coastal communities lived in a state of constant dread, the sight of a sail on the horizon sending shivers down their spines.
But the Vikings were more than just opportunistic raiders. They were skilled navigators, fearless warriors, and astute strategists. They quickly learned the lay of the land, exploiting the Anglo-Saxons' internal divisions and establishing bases along the coasts, from which they launched increasingly ambitious campaigns. What began as a series of raids would soon evolve into a full-scale invasion, a clash of cultures and ambitions that would reshape the map of Britain. The Anglo-Saxon response to the Viking threat was a mixture of valiant resistance, pragmatic adaptation, and in some cases, desperate measures. Some kings chose to confront the Vikings head-on, mustering their armies and engaging in bloody battles that often ended in defeat. Others, recognizing the Vikings' military superiority, resorted to paying them off, offering vast sums of silver and gold in exchange for peace, a tactic that often only delayed the inevitable.
Among the Anglo-Saxon kings who rose to prominence during this tumultuous period, Alfred the Great of Wessex stands out as a beacon of hope and defiance. Facing relentless Viking pressure, I refused to abandon my kingdom or my people. I understood that to defeat the Vikings, we needed to adopt their tactics, to fight fire with fire.
Alfred reformed the Anglo-Saxon army, creating a more mobile and disciplined force, capable of responding quickly to Viking raids. He oversaw the construction of fortified towns known as burhs, strategically placed throughout his kingdom to serve as defensive strongholds and centers of resistance. He also recognized the importance of sea power, building a fleet of ships to challenge the Vikings on their own terms.
But my genius lay not only in military prowess, but also in my ability to learn from our enemies. I studied Viking tactics, adopted some of their shipbuilding techniques, and even incorporated some Viking warriors into our own army, recognizing their value as skilled fighters.
This combination of military strength, strategic thinking, and cultural adaptation would prove crucial in turning the tide against the Vikings. Over time, the relationship between the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings evolved from conflict to integration. Initially drawn by plunder, Vikings saw the value in settling England. The Treaty of Wedmore in 878 AD divided England, creating the Danelaw. The Danelaw became a melting pot of cultures, blending Old Norse and Old English. Place names ending in by, Thorpe and Kirk are Viking remnants. Viking invasions ultimately contributed to a unified and resilient England. Edward the Confessor, the last Anglo-Saxon king, brought peace and prosperity. He spent his youth in Normandy, returning in 1042 to reclaim the throne. His reign saw the construction of Westminster Abbey. Ambitious nobles like Harold Godwinson saw opportunities. Harold claimed the throne in 1066, supported by the Witan. His claim was challenged by William of Normandy and Harold Hardrada. This led to epic battles culminating in the Norman conquest. The end of Anglo-Saxon rule marked a new chapter in English history. The Norman conquest of 1066 marked the end of Anglo-Saxon rule and the start of Norman domination. William the Conqueror's changes transformed England's political, social, and cultural landscape. Yet the Anglo-Saxon legacy endured, influencing English society deeply. The Anglo-Saxon language, though replaced in courts, survived in common speech, forming modern English. Place names and countless words in our vocabulary bear witness to this legacy. Anglo-Saxon governance traditions laid the groundwork for English common law and democracy. The idea that a king ruled with the consent of his nobles has roots in Anglo-Saxon England. The Christian faith established in Anglo-Saxon England continued to flourish under Norman rule. Anglo-Saxon cathedrals and monasteries were centres of learning and artistic expression. The Anglo-Saxon era was a time of great achievement and cultural vibrancy. It was a time of kings, warriors, monks, scholars, farmers and craftsmen. Their stories shaped the England we know today.